Hello all, you fine feathered beings of this planet. That young man is Mark. My name's Eric. It is League Unlock, and it is Global Power Rankings Day. Everybody's favorite day of the week because it's an absolute mess. It's impossible to sort through when you're looking at 3.5 major regions. I'll give NA that half of a major region. I think that's fair. Maybe a 10.
Yeah, we're holding on to that mainly based off of just that the fact that NA was given major region status at the very beginning, because we haven't done too much to hold on to that status, and lowering it down to half, I think that's, if any NA fan is wanting more than half at this point, we're gonna have to have some discussions.
Maybe 3/10. You could say 3 teams could contend for at least a playoff spot in some of the other regions. But we are going 20-1 today. Lots of changes from last week, and that's just the case. Every region going full throttle, and there's a lot of movement because some of the teams you would expect are not doing well, and teams you wouldn't expect are thriving, and that is no more clear than number 20 on our list, because in the preseason, Mark, I did not think we would be sitting here saying Fnatic not in the top 20. You can't put them in the top 20 after what they did in week 3. Dreadful performances on the Rift, but an EU team that is in the top 20, SK Gaming. This is supposed to be the 10th place team. Maybe they get 3 wins, all split long, but all they're doing is some clean macro and annihilating G2 on the Rift.
Look, we saw that this was the roster that they were heading into summer with a couple of changes, making a role swap in the top lane for Gen X. I thought, okay, like, even if all that works out, I don't have faith in Trick as your jungler for another split. Proven us wrong. Trick has been more than fine for this SK roster, but specifically the reason why they can find themselves at number 20 is these moves being made. Gen X in the top side has worked out more than okay for this squad. And then you talk about the bright side, the bright spot that puts you up here in this power rankings, in the top 20 in the world. Crown Shot has continued to step up his performance. Talked about him in the spring as the bright spot for this organization, and stuck in ELO hell type of situation. Not anymore. My boys got some help, got
ELO
some reserves.
heaven. He somehow stumbled on it.
And they are pushing ahead, pushing up the rankings in the LEC. Really exciting to watch this growth from SK. Didn't see it coming, and happy to be able to call it now.
They'll be hard pressed to stay in the top 20 when it's so many stacked teams. But for now, enjoy that number 20 spot. EDG does go down, and they're the only sub 500 team on this list. But you've got to keep in mind the series that they have won have been against some top tier teams. They had a competitive series against TES, a horrible, dreadful series where they got OT'd against Demo. But they're playing without their starting AD carry in Hope as he continues to recover. They've had BBD in at AD carry. So EDG, even though they're sub 500, they're still looking like a playoff caliber team in the LPL. They're a spot below Afrika, who climbed a couple of spots. They went 0-2 this week and climbed, but it was against T1 and DRX. Tough teams to go against.
Yeah, clearly an indication of strength of schedule, as well as still the individual performances and certain things that you could pinpoint even in those losses. And yes, kind of being careful considering those losses are against DRX and T1. You still can see some of the positives coming through from this Afrika Freak squad, and still recognizing that they have something to offer, just might not be at the very top of the table in the LCK.
And they were absolutely competitive series against both T1 and DRX. So that's why they're not punished too harshly. Origin goes down a spot. They lost to Mad, kind of got smacked in that one, and they only had a win against Shulka. So they moved down a spot, basically stay the same area. But RNG has the biggest drop of the week, down double digits. Think we were a little bit too hyped on them early, having them towards that top 5 area. 2-0 or 0-2 against Victory 5, and they lost against World Elite earlier today, which is why WE climbs a few spots to get ahead of them. And RNG, it was actually Cryan who started all 3 games against World Elite, and he looked better than Teacher Ma, to be honest. But team-wide, World Elite looking better in that 3rd game, and Zhu Mang grabs his 6th MVP to lead the way in the LPL right now.
We were definitely too early on the RNG hype, wanting to see them make this surge in the summer split, get back to that level that you talk about them for sure. not happening quite so fast. This is the reminder that there is still a lot of talent in the LPL waiting to push you, and this is one of the instances that we were hoping to see from Victory 5 perspective, was to see PP God in the squad show up, get that big time victory against a big up squad. And this is going to be now an important week for RNG to stall things out, to prove that this was the, the outlier as our success goes this summer split.
And there's still positives, obviously, with RNG. They still should be a playoff team. Zhao Longbao looks great. New has fit in seamlessly on this roster and looks great in the top lane. So easily to bounce back from this for RNG, but a rough week out of them that they just had. Damwon stays put at 14. They beat KT, lost to Genji. Maybe should have won that series, but good enough to at least stay put. Rogue climbs up a couple of spots, and a lot of that is just the sheer domination that they put on against Fnatic on the Rift.
Yeah, and we talked about it when we were talking yesterday about this weekend. The job that we've seen from Rogue in the past couple of bits is absolutely what you wanted to see in the spring split. This is the continuation of what you saw last year, the development of this young squad and what they could do on the Rift. That's what you wanted to be seeing in spring. We didn't see enough glimpses of it or any consistency of it. Now, starting in summer, this has been a continuation these weeks of the summer split so far of seeing this level of play from Rogue, and makes me feel good about the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Larson is making claims and arguments to be the best mid laner in EU right now. He's been playing at that high of a level, and Rogue, not as good as Mad Lions, couldn't get it done against them, but they look like one of the better teams in the LEC right now, and front runners for one of these spots at Worlds, because remember, there are 4 that are going to be represented from Europe. Ahead of them is JDG, who did go down some spots, 5 spots, even though they won some games, but they have yet to really be tested. They dropped games to RNG and TES, which are really the only good teams they've faced so far on the year. Sure, they have 3 wins, but they're against Demo, Rogue Warriors, Suning, and they haven't been the most dominant series. Sure, they absolutely pumped Rogue Warriors in one of the games, but the other 2 were relatively close and they dropped one of them. So I don't have that level of confidence in JDG like I did in spring yet.
No, they're still waiting to see them turn on to get back to that level of play that we were seeing them dominate at the end of the spring split. That's going to be the important question, is whether they can get back to that exact level of play, because anything less than that, it's not going to be enough in the LPL at the very top of the table, the form that we've seen from squads like Top Esports. If you're not playing what you were in the spring split, this JDG team will not be able to compete at that very top level. I still think that they can obviously get there, but it's going to be, that's the question, is whether they do or not. And then this next couple of weeks are really going to be a proving ground for JDG to say, look, we're for real and we can get it going when it matters most in this summer split.
A team that already looks for real is V5, just outside the top 10, spot ahead of JDG, and all they did was 2-0 RNG, and yes, they lost to FPX, the defending world champions, in a highly contested series. Looked great at moments throughout that set, and some of the numbers these guys are putting up. They have the lowest deaths in the LPL, the second highest gold differential behind only Top, and they have the highest Baron percentage at 76% in the LPL, the most stacked region. These guys are putting up.
It's incredible because they've continued to be must-watch League of Legends, because in the spring, it was must-watch to see just how badly a professional team could perform. And now we're here in Summer Split where they're playing incredible. And this is, hey, SK fans, take notes. This is the absolute peak of what a redemption arc can look like for a squad at the very bottom, historically bottom of the LPL in the spring. Now pushing up towards the very top of the table, looking like a playoff caliber team. Man, feels good for Victory 5.
It feels like it might not be too long before we're talking about them in that top 10 category. Speaking of that top 10, we advance to the top 10 for this week. These are the creme de la creme, the best of the best, and there are some familiar faces from last week. But the first squad, we have Invictus Gaming climbing up a couple of spots to reach that top 10. basically a direct result of winning that series against Fun Plus Phoenix, which it was a banger. You know, anytime FPX and IG are on the Rift, you're going to have some crazy team fights that are totally up in the air. This series absolutely could have gone either way, but it was Ning who continues to all of a sudden be one of the more consistent players on IG in summer. What's up with that?
We talked about it heading into this one, that's been the trend. That we wanted to see this, you know, the turnaround after the slump towards spring and, you know, mid-season cup for IG. We wanted to see the turnaround come through, and especially Ning was a player that we talked about quite a lot to get it going. Things haven't quite turned around to the extent that we want in the top side for the Shy, but absolutely in the jungle position, and not just the jungle position and how it's been interacting with top lane, but especially jungle and the rest of the squad for IG has absolutely gotten back to the levels that you expect from them. And if they can just solve pretty much this slump that seems to be continuing to at various levels plaguing the Shy, then we can really talk about IG being back to that absolute world dominating form.
Yeah, and the bot lane is still a little bit suspect. You just don't quite have the faith in Puff that you did in Jackie Love when he was on this roster.
That's a hard ask, though.
It's a hard ask, yeah. One of quickly becoming one of the greatest AD carries in the LPL of all time. But, you know, Puff, there's time to develop still, and we haven't really seen him in enough of these pressure situations on this IG roster yet. So there's still time there. Cloud9 stays put at number 9, and they're just, listen, until we see them on the international stage, it's hard to put them that much higher. They've done all that they can do. Just riff off some quick numbers of them so far. 2.74 team KDA. That's a full 1.2 higher than second place FlyQuest. Okay, not bad. 92% of dragons they are collecting in their 6 games so far. They haven't given up a Baron, and their goal differential at 15 is a cool 3,344. That's with the Team Liquid game, which they were down, by the way.
You look at all these other squads, all these other regions in our power rankings, and you see these top level teams. They're pulling the rest of their region with them, and the region's not fighting back. Cloud9 is pulling the rest of North America, and North America is going the exact opposite direction that Cloud9 is trying to go. That is why you find them at number 9, because look, Eric and I both believe that this Cloud9 team is legit, powerful,
Absolutely.
real level skill at the international level. We just have not been able to see it or prove it because we haven't had an MSI or a mid-season cup type of thing in North America. So Cloud9 is just done a disservice by the way, unfortunately, the world is right now in this year. But absolutely believe in the stats, believe in what you see from them, and how they dominate in the LCS is absolutely the level of play that they will be bringing internationally.
The level of dominance for Cloud9, usually, listen, you want to make an all-star team, pick from any of the players in the LCS. I'm not changing anyone on Cloud9. You say you can combine anyone, I'll say, great, I'll take Cloud9. I don't want to sub anyone out for anyone else in the LCS.
Look, Blabber has come on to the C9 roster, and ever since he's been there and playing in that starting role, they have something like over an 85, 86, 87, higher than that % win rate with Blabber there. That's ridiculous for one individual player to have that type of win rate at the start of his professional main stage career. That is the level of play and impact that we are getting from Blabber. And that is, again, a continuation of not only just Blabber, but the rest of this C9 squad dominating.
Yeah, Cloud9 is kind of like they're the ones riding a horse, and the other 9 teams in NA are tied up at the hands, running behind the horse, trying to keep up. And
they're the ones cleaning up the horse droppings afterwards. That's the rest of NA.
It's not going so well. LGD, it's going great for. They're up 3 spots to number 8. GA, Peanut, Kramer. The roster's living up to the hype. They look like legit contenders. They didn't play much this week. They only played that head-to-head against IG, which they did come out as victors. They move up to that number 8 spot. Gen G moves up 1 spot to number 7. BDD has 4 MVPs. They went 2-0 versus Damwon and the boys from Prince. Still not fully confident in Gen G to the level that we've seen before, but they're at number 7. And G2 is down a couple of spots, Mark. They're in at number 6. They lost to SK. They thumped Fnatic. Even though they have a worse record than Rogue, still feel like G2 is a stronger team than Rogue.
Yeah, and this is unfortunate for G2 fans it's the Fnatic faithful stabbing you in the back with this one, because it's G2 pumping Fnatic in that big match of the week that we talked about, but you just can't give them all the marks
It's less
that you
impressive
want to for that
because Fnatic's terrible.
Right, and it's not just about, it's not just the Fnatic organization, it's especially the way that they've played in the past 2 weeks consecutively, and especially considering this past week, really not up to that level. And again, you don't want to fault G2 for that, obviously, because they just showed up on the day and took care of the business that they had to. But it simply wasn't the big oomph in your, stat category, that power that you feel from taking down one of these squads to push them even higher in the rankings. Still waiting to see the full force of the G2 roster. If you've been watching LEC a lot, watching G2, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because this is close and they have that, those little aspects that you're like, yeah, that's the domination from G2, but it's just not that full package that we have seen in the past year or so of the way that G2 is able to crush the competition.
And listen, the potential for this team that we've seen for 3 splits now, and even in the wins that they've gotten this year, they looked really good. They looked like the G2 of old. That's why even with 3 losses already and a 4-3 record, they're still hovering outside of that top 5. Maybe it changes with Pinoy subbing in next week for Perks, but listen, he seems fired up already. He's tweeting about it. He's the promise Q of 2019 now for this GT roster, and I'm hyped for that.
Hey man, if he's taken down Doublelift before, stepping in to take down the rest of the LEC, no problem.
Yeah, it's about the same level of competition, right? Winning against Doublelift in an IEM in like 2014, I feel like was when that event happened. But even with the sub coming in, G2 still probably going to be hovering around that top 5 area. Speaking of that top 5, we talked about, listen, I said 10-6 was the creme de la creme. Well, then I don't know what this is. This is just the cherry on top. Top 5 teams for the week. A lot of it similar from what we had last week, but the big climb, the biggest climb of the week, and for the first time in what feels like forever, G2, not the highest ranked team from the LEC. You've got to put some respect and some recognition on the Mad Lions. They took down Origin and Rogue in dominant fashion again this week, 6 games in a row. We talked about it on the weekend recap. There's not that much to nitpick about with this team. They just look clean across the board in a highly competitive European league.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to start off top lane. It's a top lane island. I don't care too much about what's happening. You look at what's going on with the rest of this Mad Lions roster and what they've been able to do and how exciting that they've been. Shadow popping off in the jungle, Humanoid again. This has been a really nice thing at this period for the Mad Lions, is the consistency coming across from Humanoid. That is something that we've always wanted. He could hit these peaks before last year, but we never had that consistency week after week. That is something we've seen develop at least over the course of this year, and especially to start out summer, a lot more consistent. And then the bottom lane, Karzi and Kaiser are one of my favorite bot lanes in all of the world right now. The way that they're playing, the dynamic that those two bring to the game, love what you're seeing from this Mad Lions roster, and I only hope to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, and there's no reason to think that it wouldn't. The hunger is absolutely there. There's still so many young players. Humanoid seems better and better every week. So I think Mad Lions are here to stay in summer. Sure, G2 might take back that throne as the best in EU, but Mad Lions are absolutely there to vie for now the second best team in Europe at the end of the split. We'll be talking about maybe even winning their first LEC title. A spot ahead of them, though, is T1. They climb up a couple of spots. It was a 2-0 week for them. And really the main story for me, they looked pretty good in most of their games, but Elam starts 4 out of the 5 games. He goes 4-0, doesn't drop a game with T1. We're going to be seeing him starting more going forward. I know it was somewhat easy, the matchup this week, but Afrika gave them some trouble.
I think this is more just a continuation of recognizing a couple spots in the schedule and maybe the general competitiveness of the full table of the LCK, and realizing these are some good opportunities to get some stage time, some practice, everything of that nature. Because when you're talking about this T1 organization, I think the next step obviously is preparing not only this main roster for that international stage and these steps, but getting a substitute ready, someone ready, that extra strategic piece, that pawn piece on the chessboard that you can control and have. I think that is something that we're seeing with Elam getting a little bit more starting time, playing into these ones. If you're Cuz, if Vanna Cuz, not worried one little bit that he is out of the plan or the process for T1. They are continuing to be a top level squad. Let's just see it continue, because again, they're not perfect quite yet, if anything, from seeing how much they struggled against squads like Hanwha Life to push on through.
And we know Teddy and Faker were great, but Kana also had a fantastic week. A couple of MVPs for him. The top three are the same from last week. They haven't moved. Fun plus Phoenix, sure. They lose to IG. Okay, a little bit suspect. Almost a coin flip game 3. Then they get the win against Victory 5. Still feel like the general strength, even though they're only 4-2, less wins than some squads. Got FPX as the second best team in the LPL, but they are a spot behind Dragon X again. DRX another 2-0. Sure, they probably shouldn't have 2-0'd in that Afrika series, but Dragon X looked like the best team in Korea still.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you're right. 2-0 against the Afrika Freaks. That one, on the scoreboard, sure, you could believe it, but if you watch the game, that's not how you would have drawn up exactly the divvying up the points. But that's not all they're asking on the scorecard. They're asking for the game score, and that is that 2-0 for DRX, continuing to pick up the wins for them. And what I liked seeing this week, again, more strong play from everybody that you would expect, the likes of Chovy and Def. But it continues the growth of Kyria in the bot side. Again, man is making some of the best plays you will see all year, consistently, week in, week out, mechanically clean, making clean calls and plays. It is absolutely, if you haven't already, there's a lot of reasons to be watching the LCK, LPL-like teams. Get in on watching DRX games, because Kyria is going to be a name that you are going to remember for a long time, given how legendary he's already playing this early in his career.
And add the Gragas and Morgana to picks for Chovy here in 2020 summer. Khan still played all the games for FPX. He still looks good on the top side. And we finally got to see Fiddlesticks for Doin' B. You knew it was only a matter of time before he was going to play that. But number one, it's no question. There's the only thing that is inarguable on this list is top in at number one. Even when they have a sloppy series, they have a terrible early game against EDG, they still win the series. Knight is still building Magi's, and they are still the best team in the world.
I think the only possible real matchups that can knock out top esports out of this top spot is if someone like DRX beats T1 2-0 in 22-minute games or something like that. Because the form that top esports have been showing us, the way that they play, every individual player and as a group team, they are clearly the best in the world at this very moment, at the very next moment, and the one after that. You better believe that top esports are here to represent the very best in the world.
And I'll give you a spoiler for next week. TES only plays LNG this week. Even if they go 0-2 to LNG, I'm calling it a fluke one-off series. TES are going to be number one next week again.
Yeah, it's going to take a hell of a lot to displace top esports. The run that they've shown us over the last couple of weeks, what they show us week in and week out every time, clearly the number one team in the world. You can't have them anywhere else but at the very top of the power rankings.
But the big matches in the LPL, RNG and FPX have some implications on what the rankings will be next week, and as well IG versus JDG. JDG finally going to be tested versus a top squad, but that is it today for League on Log. My name's Eric, here with Mark. Thanks for hanging out as always. We'll catch you guys on that flippity flop.